Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to an all-new season of the UK Sim Racing Community Porsche Cup, as hosted on iRacing, the premier sim racing platform available on PC. And today marks the day where we lift the curtain up on Season 4 of the ever-popular Porsche Cup Championship, where it's the case that our drivers take to a number of circuits across the globe in the venerable Porsche Super Cup machine known as the Porsche 992, and it is the case they look to duke out over a multitude of rounds to determine who is the best in both the drivers and the team's championships. It's the case today that we mark rounds 1 and 2, hosted at Road Atlanta in the United States of America. And we should point out that this broadcast is being brought to you as a post-round broadcast, and we'll give more details on when the broadcasts are post-round and live shortly. But it is the case the racing action you're seeing on screen today occurred as of yesterday evening on Thursday the 22nd of September, but we're bringing it to you as if it were live today as of Friday the 23rd of September. This broadcast is being brought to you on the official UKSimRacing Twitch channel. It is the case if you go to twitch.tv/UKSimRacing_, you can tune in there right now. And it is the case that in the commentary booth you have myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll be bringing you all of your racing action over the course of the 12-round season, and split up over the course of 6 racing events. But with us being at Road Atlanta here today, it is the case that we're hearing down in the paddock all of our drivers absolutely fired up to kick off another season. We've got the return of a good number of familiar faces from Season 3, and we've also got a good number of new faces taken to the circuit, and that mixture means that rivalries of old will continue and new rivalries are sure to be ignited. And with our drivers being split across the gold and silver classes and also teams championship up for grabs, you can imagine there's everything for everyone to play for as they make their way through each and every round. But speaking of the rounds and the race events, let's take you through the season ahead as it stands, and particularly the circuits we're going to be racing at. So as we can see here on screen today, we are kicking off with Road Atlanta for rounds 1 and 2. And it is the case that this broadcast, as you can see from the little asterisk there, is a post-round, as we mentioned previously. And it will be the same for the second race event, so rounds 3 and 4, which will be held at Monza on the 6th of October. That broadcast will be on the following Friday, so on the 7th of October. After that, all broadcasts will be live. It will be the case that the broadcast itself will be conducted live, but I do believe it may be shown a day later in order to improve what is viewer engagement, particularly for those who are driving in this series who do love to tune back into the racing afterwards. But it is the case the actual broadcast itself will be recorded live, and therefore it will be completely raw, albeit we are trying to bring it as raw as possible to you guys and girls tuning in at home. But it is the case that our live broadcast will be from rounds 5 onwards, and rounds 5 and 6 will be taking place at the Spa-Francorchamps circuit in Belgium as we make our way across Europe from Monza to Belgium, and that will be on the 20th of October before we then return to Italy for the Imola circuit, as it's known in short, for rounds 7 and 8, and that will be on the 3rd of November. And then we make our way down under to Australia for rounds 9 and 10, the penultimate race event in the Mount Panorama circuit. Up and down the mountain our drivers will battle, and indeed in these cars you can imagine it's going to be ever more difficult, given the fact that these cars are naturally unstable and therefore required to be tamed very heavily, and the mountain is one place you never want to try and tame a car. And we'll be making our way up and down the Australian mountain on the 17th of November. And we'll be bringing it all to a close on the season finale rounds of rounds 11 and 12 back in Europe at the German circuit, the full Nürburgring Gesamtstrecke VLN-Laut. That's right, ladies and gents, with the full 24-hour of Nürburgring endurance layout. And it will be the case on the 1st of December. Our drivers will be taking their cars around there to wrap up proceedings. And you can imagine they're all looking at that right now, thinking it's going to be a daunting prospect. But along the way, we have got a whole multitude of circuits which are just as challenging in their own unique regard. But today, we are at Road Atlanta. And as we look to the circuit specifically here, we are officially what's known as the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, named after, of course, the title sponsor for the circuit. And this circuit being located near the village of Brazelton in Hall County in the state of Georgia, approximately 35 miles away from the city of Atlanta itself in the United States of America. You can see from the circuit map provided to us here by simracingwiki.com that this circuit is made up of 12 corners, and it looks quite a fast and flowing circuit. Well, you wouldn't be wrong if you thought that straight away. However, it comes with a bit of a twist, and a 2D diagram does not quite tell the full story. This circuit is likened to being a roller coaster ride for road racing drivers, in the fact that this circuit has major undulations over the course of each and every corner sequence. The run through turn number 1 will see our drivers making their way into a depression before charging uphill into the run through turns 2 and 3, and then downhill through turn 4 into the S's, which are not classified as corners, given the fact that most of the time you're trying to go flat out through the S's in the run to turn number 5. Survive that, now our drivers have got a long run all the way up to the double right section of turns 6 and 7, which really split the lap in half, and and then it's the run all the way down the straightaway with the kinks to turns 8 and 9, while drivers will be getting up to top speed before making their way into the heavy braking zone in the depression that is the dip into the turn 10 chicane. Breaking up into a left to right known as 10A and 10B, it is a case that chicane never used to exist. It used to be a flat out run all the way up the hill to where turn 11 stands, but it is the case we've had that chicane added for safety measures over the years of racing at Road Atlanta, and as our drivers emerge from the chicane, they'll make their way uphill to turn number 11 and then downhill through the right hander at turn number 12 to complete the lap and do it all again after 2.54 miles, I should say, of racing distance. So you can imagine, with the lap being fast flying here and lap times expected to come in the region of 1 minute 20, it is the case that we're going to see plenty of laps turn despite the short nature of our races, which we'll come to very shortly. But thank you to SimRacing Wiki once again, as always, providing us with our circuit maps, and we're all right on board with one of our drivers in the qualifying session to give you a true feel of what it's like to pilot a Porsche 992 around this circuit in the Super Cup Series. But as we then look from our circuit to our rules, let's just take you through our rules, because without rules we can't go racing. It is the case that qualifying shall be a lone qualifying session where all of our drivers will take to an isolated instance of the circuit. So it is the case they all have an instance of the circuit where nobody else is out of the circuit with them to be able to put in their qualifying laps, and drivers shall have 8 minutes to set their best possible time. They have an infinite number of laps. They can do as many laps as they want. Of course, they're not going to have that many laps with only 8 minutes on the clock, but they'll look to set their best possible time to put themselves on the grid for the purposes of our first race this evening. Now, talking about the races shall commence via a standing start. It's the case, as is the tradition, all our drivers will launch off the line there, and that adds to the challenge. For these Porsche Cup cars not having that traction control available, that means our drivers have to be smart and engage in the throttle and indeed getting the wheels to spin in the direction they want them to, and the car not careening off circuit when they try to launch it off the line. And in terms of our two races, we have a sprint race and a feature race. The sprint race comes first. The sprint race grid shall be based on the results of qualifying, so it is the case whoever qualifies on pole starts on pole for the purposes of the sprint race. However, the feature race grid shall be a partial reverse grid that follows based on the results of the sprint race, with the top 8 positions inverted. What that means in standard English is the case whoever wins the sprint race will start in 8th place for the purposes of the feature race grid. Whoever finishes in 8th for the purposes of the sprint race will start in pole position for the feature race, and then whoever finishes 9th downwards in the sprint race, well, they'll start in that exact position on the grid for the feature race. There are no mandatory pit stop requirements in either of the races. It's the case if we see drivers coming into the pits, they've either picked up damage to the car, or perhaps they've been a little bit naughty and they've picked up enough penalties to be able to get themselves a drive-through penalty. And it is the case that the standard limit for all races shall be times 17 instant points, as based on the iRacing automated shielding system. But we should point out, for the purposes of rounds 1 and 2 here today at Road Atlanta, it was erroneously set up as times 5, so I wouldn't be surprised if we do see quite a few drive-through penalties over the course of both the sprint and the feature race. So if we do see a lot of drivers come into the pits, it's not as though they've got to take a tyre change. It's the case there might be a few wayward drive-through penalties there, but that has been noted and been fixed for the future rounds already. But that's enough of rules, regulations and everything in between. Let's head to circuit side here, and as we do look to the circuit side right now, it's a little bit quiet as all of our drivers are in their driver briefing, but let's take you through that schedule for rounds 1 and 2 of season 4 of the Porsche Cup, hosted by UKSimRacing. So it is the case, times in British summertime, that's BST, or Universal Coordinated Time +1, that's UTC +1. It is the case that in just under 7 minutes time, we'll kick off with the qualifying session. 8 minutes, of course, and we'll be riding on board with one of our drivers. I do believe it will be Richard Simnor, who has provided us with our iRacing replay file, who will be riding on board with for the purposes of that qualifying session, and we'll give you a feel for the ins and outs of the Road Atlanta circuit. Straight after that, we'll be going into the gridding process for our first race of the evening. That's our sprint race. That'll be at 8:10 this evening, and that'll be a 12-minute race whereby drivers will deliver laps over the course of 12 minutes, plus also the lap they're on when we hit the clock at 12. And it is the case straight after that, we'll be taking a brief 1-minute pause before gridding up for the purposes of our second race of this evening, or round number 2, if you will, and that will be the feature race at approximately 8:25 this evening. And that'll be a 30-minute race whereby it's a bit longer. It's over double the duration of the sprint race, and therefore we call it a feature because it requires our drivers to be put to the test a little bit more in terms of their endurance and stamina. But you can imagine the key feature there will be the fact who will be able to hold on and keep the pace over the distance with a little bit more tyre wear coming into effect, given the fact that we've increased the time distance of the race by a factor of 2.5. We'll have to wait and see all that and more as we are almost about to get underway for the purposes of the qualifying session here. And I do believe that driver's briefing is just wrapping up at the moment and our drivers will still have the best part of what is going to be about 5 minutes to get the final warm-up in before we do go racing. As we can see, the majority of our drivers there at a distance parked up in the pit lane. An absolutely pleasant day today at the Road Atlanta circuit, and as we do see here, Stu Bickley for DCW Racing Blue making his way up through turn at number 5 right now. It is a case here, of course, that all of our Porsches powered by a 510 horsepower 4-litre flat 6 engine. You're going to hear them all roar, and indeed with 26 drivers taken to the circuit today, if you do a bit of quick maths there, it is the case that we are going to be hearing, if my maths is not incorrect, we will be hearing over 25,000 horsepower off the line and racing around this circuit, and that is going to be an absolutely phenomenal sound to hear, I can assure you that now. And indeed, if you're a fan of Porsche Super Cup in real world, it is the case these cars are running to the identical spec to Porsche Super Cup, where, as we said earlier, there's no traction control and there is no ABS or anti-lock braking system on them, and that means when our drivers go into these braking zones here, if they come on too heavy on the brakes too soon, you will see them lock up and you're going to see a lot of smoke come from those front brakes in particular. So it's about brake management, it's about throttle management, and it's also about getting the car set up for your driving style on the circuit hand. Well, this being an open setup series, which means our drivers can bring any setup of their liking to the circuit. But as they make their way on around here, just getting themselves set, we do look to the chat, and of course we can see the Twitch chat there on the UK Sim Racing channel. We do say hello to what is there, Stuart B at 24. Good evening to you, Stuart. I hope you're doing well. Also to It's I Wardy there. Hope you're doing well, Wardy. We've also got It's Bentley's there asking, is this live or not? No, it was last night, as I believe there Wardy has clarified for you, Bentley's, but it is the case. We will be having a live broadcast later on in the season, and we look forward to bringing those, of course. We do know that you guys and girls love to have live broadcasts over post-round broadcasts, particularly because we can use replays of events that happen in the race off camera, and we can take a look back, something we can't do over the course of a replay file, unfortunately, due to technical limitations. And well, we've also got Simon Bamber in there as well, and I hope you're doing well, Simon. In fact, Simon making his way around the circuit right now, the privateer in the 912 car, as he makes his way over the ridge of turn number 11. But as he runs his way on down at this point, it is the case we can see there Stuart B saying go at DCW, and also what is there, UK Sim Racing's official Twitch chat there saying look at that class bit, absolutely mega. And indeed, let's talk a little bit about our class bit here. It is the case that we do have our gold drivers and also our silver drivers, and you can denote those by the fact on the timing tower you'll see a different coloured sash between their position number and the driver name, whereby if we look to Mark Custers, for example here, the Dutch driver from Samside Canaan Esports, it is the case that as he makes his way through turn number 1, he does have a yellow gold sash against his name, both in the timing tower in the bottom left hand corner of your screen, and that means he is part of the gold driver class, and those are our faster drivers based on iRating and also pre-season evaluation testing. And it is the case these drivers are expected to be a little bit higher on the pace compared to our silver class drivers, and they'll be battling for the Gold Drivers' Championship. Meanwhile, if our drivers have got a grey silver sash, well, as it may say on the tin, that means that they are part of the silver class. So they're expected to be a little bit slower in terms of pace compared to our gold class drivers, but there's of course the potential for our silver class drivers to get one up on the gold drivers, and you can see there on the time tower that Steve Hughes for Rabbit Hole Racing, P16 in the times right now, it is the case that he is one of our many silver class drivers. Now we do have a roughly even split in terms of gold versus silver over the course of the grid, so there's no leniency towards one or the other. And with over 30 drivers signed up to this season, 26 taken to the circuit tonight, you can imagine we're going to see plenty of racing action between our gold and silver drivers over the course of the season's duration. And we, of course, do have that team's championship as well. Not every driver is part of a team. If you do see a driver listed as a privateer, that means that they're not representing an individual team. Meanwhile, if you've got a driver such as Steve Hughes here for Rabbit Hole Racing, well, that means he is representing Team Rabbit Hole Racing in the team's championship. But beyond that, that's all the basics there that you need to know with regards to the information on screen, as we see Richard White making his way up towards turn number 6. And whilst we are waiting to go racing here, just a quick note to those of you tuning in right now, indeed perhaps long-time fans of UK Sim Racing, if you've ever wondered how you can potentially give back to UK Sim Racing, and a very quick and easy way to do so, given the fact that we do put on so many shows and leagues for everybody, it is the case that you can support UK Sim Racing via our affiliates. Now, if you're wondering what we mean by that, well, it is the case that UK Sim Racing is affiliated with multiple sim racing and real-world motorsport companies, including Swellia Omega Sim Racing Coaching, Race Anywhere, and Demon Tweaks. And the key thing is that if you head to our website, which you can see here on screen, which is the UK Sim Racing website, located at uksimracing.co.uk, I should say. If you head there today, there is a page where you can see our affiliates, and particularly you can see in the top left-hand corner of your screen the discount stroke affiliate links. And if you do go to that page, it is the case that you you will see images of our respective affiliates on screen, much like you can see right now. And if you do click on our affiliates images, you can make purchases through them, which result in discounts for you and a kickback to us. In turn, as UKSimRacing is a non-profit organisation, all of our affiliate earnings shall be invested back into the community to fund future series, much like the Porsche Cup. And additionally, some of our affiliates provide discount codes which are available in the UKSimRacing Discord. So if you're not part of our Discord, be sure to join our Discord today, because there's plenty there for you in terms of discounts and whatnot. And remember, a little purchase can go a long way in supporting UKSimRacing. But speaking of going a long way, it is the case, it is going to be a long way through the championship as we make our way back to the live screens right now. And it is the case that we are now into qualifying, and we are waiting for what is Richard Simnor here to make his way into the end of the pit lane and head out for his qualifying laps, and we'll be able to bring you those on board. But as the DCW Racing red driver here in the 42 car gets himself underway and heads on out, it is the case he'll be trying to get a bit of tyre temperature into the car. What do we need to look out for here in terms of the track and an individual lap? Well, the key thing about the Road Atlanta circuit is flow. You need to be able to carry the speed from corner to corner here, given the fact we've got a whole variety of sweeping corners. And that means, in turn, that if you lose 2 to 3 mile an hour on the apex of one corner, you're likely then to have that compounded at the next corner, and you lose the lap time. And where it's very prevalent is in the run out of turns 5, 6, and 7, as he makes his way out towards 6 here very shortly. And you'll see the double right is the case. You want to nail these 2 right-handers, particularly turn number 7, because if you do not, you lose a bit of top-end speed in the run down towards turn number 10. But Simnor makes his way out here. Nice smooth exit this time, of course, getting that tyre temperature up further and getting that brake temperature up as well. In the case in this long run, and next time we see him make his way on around, he'll be absolutely attacking the circuit, trying to deliver that time as best as possible as he makes his way down the back straight here up towards turn number 10. But flying on through, it is the case, rolling on around. We see there a lot of hype in the chat there, particularly from Simon Bamber, absolutely excited. And well, speak of excitement here, let's ride on board with Richard Simnor then as he takes us around for the first flying lap of season 4. So making his way down for the right-hander at turn number 12 to go on to lap here. We clear the screen of information and just keep the track map up as he heads into turn number 1. Braking into turn 1 then, coming down the gearbox to 4th gear, gradually on down, and as he rolls his way out of the corner now, up the hill, through the left-hander at 2, completely blind on the summit here. Where's turn number 3? And then suddenly there's turn number 3. He clatters over the apex and now rolls his way through the left-hander at 4 before dropping down through the S's here. And it's all about balancing the car on the throttle as he goes up to 5th gear, through the left into right, and now having to bring the brakes in for turn number 5, down to 3rd gear and stamping back on the throttle, clattering over the exit curb, and now heading up towards turn number 6. Flat out now, all the way towards the braking zone here, heading up into 5th gear, and as he brakes down to 4th, then to 3rd, gently down the gearbox, he will make his way out to 6 into 7. Now the critical corner here as he comes down to 2nd gear, the slightest corner on the circuit as he exits out, now making his way back up through the gearbox here, all the way up to top gear now as he accelerates through, the 510 horsepower being absolutely used to its maximum effect. As he makes his way down the back straight. He's got a brief breather here, but remember, we're coming into a very short drop very soon as he makes his way down and into the depression goes he. 3, 2, 1. He drops down and into the braking zone here in 6th gear, braking all the way down the gearbox to 2nd gear, through turns 10A and 10B now, upshifting to 3rd mid-apex of 10B, and over the crest of turn number 11. Down the hill he goes, over to the left-hand side here, and bring the car in full throttle commitment, and that is a lap of Road Atlanta in a Porsche Super Cup car as he crosses the line there, and that for his opening lap of 119.87. Well, given the fact we did see in the practice session, it was the case most of our drivers were in the 120s, and well, Simnor and a couple of others were hitting the 119s. That is a good starting lap there, good banker lap, and you can imagine how Simnor's going to push ever harder as he makes his way on around for his 2nd flying lap of this session. He has still got just over half of the session to go as we see him from the exterior cameras now flying them through the S's once again. And you'll notice there, the key thing that Simnor was doing throughout the lap was balancing the car well, particularly through those braking zones and also through the S's. We did see quite a bit of throttle management going in through the S's and into turn 6 and also turn number 10. Coming down the gearbox sharply, but not too sharp as to cause the rear of the car to overlift. Well, if you come down that gearbox too quickly, the rear of the car can become destabilised. Now, of course, we don't know what brake bias he's running on the car. He can set that as he will. Indeed, all of our drivers can do so, but I would imagine that he's going to have the brake bias relatively in the middle in terms of about a 50-50 split. That's a bit more of a lean towards the rear of the car, just to help get that rear end to rotate through those slower corners, because of course when the brake bias is towards the rear, what that means is the rear of the car is doing a bit more braking compared to the front of the car normally, and that means that rear does start to come around quite aggressively, because it's the rear wheels that really do determine how that braking force is applied on through. But as Simnor makes his way through the final corner here, once again, will he be able to improve from his previous lap? No, not quite, and he brings the car over to the right hand side here, and I think it will be the case he'll jump back to the pit lane and then get ready to go again. again very shortly. Indeed, he does. And right now we'll be waiting. He might be putting a little bit more fuel in the car as well, putting on a new set of boots or a new set of tyres in the common English. And as he makes his way on out, it is the case of rolling his way up the hill once again here. He's going to have one more lap at least after this out lap, where he'll be looking to get set, and we'll be able to see that lap from the exterior cameras to give you a perspective of what it looks like to see the Porsche flying through the corners here. And indeed, this circuit has a lot of history, and indeed it is a regular on American Racing Series calendars to date, and it does of course lay host to the Petit Le Mans, or I believe that is the 3-hour race around this circuit. I think it actually might be a little bit longer now that I search through my memory slightly, but it is the case here. This is a much loved circuit, whether it is for sprint races, endurance races, anything in between, and even track days. A very popular circuit for when you're visiting the United States to take a car out on circuit. If you've got your own car, alternatively renting a car, and it is the case in a number of driving schools as well, because Road Atlanta is one of those circuits which even the calmest driver will fear if you push it incredibly hard. But right now, Cinnamon makes his way on around once again, heading on down that back straight. He's getting himself set to go on to another flying lap, and we would imagine that whilst he set quite a high bar for himself in the form of that 119.87, he does have a little bit more in the tank here, and he'll be looking to try and extract that. I think he might be able to chop up another tenth or two as he goes very deep there into the chicane. I think it may have been the case he missed his braking mark and then thought, I'm not going to lock the brakes, but as he flows on through at this time around, he goes once again here, charging on around the circuit and flying onto another flying lap. As he heads into turn number 1 here, you'll notice as well how the fact the circuit's quite wide, and therefore all of our drivers, including Cinema, are trying to exploit that width of the circuit. But there's always that danger that if you put one wheel beyond the white lines onto the grass is absolutely merciless and will pull the car away. Particularly in the run through turns 2, 3, and 4 here, and that's why it's such a balancing act as Cinema makes his way on down the hill. That's sector 1, not an improved sector compared to his previous best there, but very close to matching it. And as he comes through at turn number 5 there, you can see being bold, but at the same time just not quite on that apex curve as much as he would like to be, just going a little bit wide there by inches, but it is still an improved second sector as he now comes through turn 6 and 7. And remember, of course, these two corners really do make or break the lap in terms of the final half as he exits the corner. A lovely run there out of turn number 7 and heading down towards turn number 10 now. And as he charges on through, you'll notice as well very slight micro adjustments on the steering wheel here. He creeps over to the right hand side little by little in the run down the back straight here. Doesn't want to bleed off any speed on the charge down, and as he heads into that braking zone through the depression, that gives you a sense of how much of a drop it is from the exterior perspective. Head on through, improved in subsector 3. Can he improve in subsector 4? He'll have one more lap after this, and as Sinor makes his way over the crest and down, what's it going to be? He's going to hook up this final corner. It's looking a very fast lap right now. It's a 19.8 to beat of his own, and in the end it's a 19.733, and he goes on to one more, does Richard Simnor there, and this is looking even faster. To be fair, I would not be surprised. We don't know what the times of our other drivers are, and I should point out to those of you tuning in right now, if you're wondering, do I as your host and commentator know who's on pole or anything along those lines, I'm on an embargo to make sure that I don't hear anything about how anybody got on in the race. And so if you are tuning in as the driver took part last night, try to avoid giving away any spoilers there, as he Simnor, oh goodness me, and lose in the rear there as he pushed it a bit too hard after a green sector 1, and that is going to be Simnor's qualifying session over, given the fact we're almost at the 8-minute mark. But it is the case there, it's going to be a 19.733 for him. But whilst we are waiting to transition over to the race, we do have a brief moment here to tell you a little bit else about what is coming up later in the show. Well, in fact, no, we're going to jump straight over to the grid. My apologies. And well, the grid is going to stand as follows. For what is our round number 1 of the UKSimRacing Porsche Cup Season 4, it is the case for our first race of the day. David Sampson took pole position with a 19.480 for Samsung Canon Esports, and alongside him will be James Parker. Behind them on row number 2, Richard Simnor and Emil Koopmans, followed by Mark Custers and Mike Pollard on row number 3. Ryan Davies and Gordon Ramsay on row number 4 there, with Lee Holmes and Simon Bamber on row number 5. Simon Bamber taking the silver pole position there in P10. Well done to the privateer. Stu Bickley and Misha Berger starting on our 6th row there, and behind them it will be the combination of the 2 silver drivers of Travis Linscombe Hatfield, hailing all the way from the United States of America, and Steve Hughes alongside. We'll then have Joe Newman and Karen Willesee starting on our 8th row, followed by David Stewart and Matty Wild on row number 9, Glenn Humberston and Jack Ward on row number 10, followed by Richard White and Mark Oliver on row number 11, and it will be Alistair Hatcher and Lewis Willesee on row number 12, and then on our final row it will be Tom Weston and Danny Weston there, the 2 brothers of Zilla Racing Racing. They line up and make up our final row there as we're about to get the season opener underway in less than 50 seconds time. Of course, a standing start launch here, and we'll have to wait and see who has prepped those standing start launches and who might be a little bit shy with the throttle pedal. Jack Atkinson is listed there. He's currently spectating, but his case just to make sure everything proceeds as planned, but he's not participating in either of these races, so it is the case he will be on our screens, but he is not racing around on circuit. We should clarify, but we are now moments away from going green for the first time of this season, and how will all of our drivers get on? Can David Sampson convert a pole position into a race win? Can James Parker get the jump on him, or can Richard Simnott and Emil Koopmans behind get the jump on the pair of them off the line? And also in the silver class, can Simon Bamber make that strong qualifying pole position for the silver class with 2 places between himself and Travis Linscombe-Hatfield? Can he convert it into a guaranteed victory? Well, nothing's guaranteed here at Road Atlanta as we now await the lights. And it's lights out and away we go for round number 1 of season 4 in the Porsche Cup as David Sampson gets a brilliant start, but behind James Parker gets a bogged down start. Simnott up in position already as they make the way into turn number 1, and further back 3 wide here as Gordon Ramsay finds himself on the outside there for the Saints as they make the way up the hill for the first time. Further back we can see it's Karen Willesee dropping behind Matty Wild as they make the way into turns 2 and 3, but as they all flow through here, it is the case they all have to start going into line astern. There's no real way to go side by side through the S's unless you dare to be bold, to be brave. And a bit further back there, Matty Wild ahead of Jack Ward as Ward has fallen behind a little bit as well, but it has been a bit of a shake up up front. And meanwhile, Ryan Davies here in a hot pursuit of Lee Holmes as they head up towards turn at number 6, and further behind we can see that Joe Newman there trying to get ahead of Travis Linscombe-Hatfield. The gold driver making his way ahead, and Linscombe-Hatfield on that inside line as they make the way through turn 6 up into 7, and as they roll the way through the right hand here, Steve Hughes trying to get a little bit feisty, but David Stewart also trying to get in on the mix as they make the way down the back straight. We can see that Glenn Humberstone a bit out of position, as it is the case that the 88 Tech Racing Team Cyan driver making his way down and through, and he's got his teammates there, Mark Oliver and Alistair Hatch, I believe one of them from the sister team, but a bit further up David Stewart here, meanwhile on the battle as they roll the way down the hill here versus number 9 car, also number 43 car, Karen Willesee, as they go into the braking zone, and David Stewart going around the outside as we see some smoke there from a lock-up from one of our drivers, but everybody has safely made it. Oh goodness, a bit of contact further back there from 2 of our drivers, but as they make the way over the hill, when that was Danny Weston getting a bit wrong in the rear of the pitch, oh goodness me, and Willesee in contact there with what was David Stewart. Stewart goes a bit wide, and that's going to knock him off circuit slightly. As meanwhile up front, Ryan Davies, oh my good lord, Ryan Davies onto his roof there at turn number 1. Something has gone very wrong for Ryan Davies, but meanwhile Simon Bamber here, the privateer's found his way ahead, of which Stu Bickley as Mark Custers is dropping down the order like a stone. He's off at turn 2 and 3, and it is the case it's all drama at the end of lap number 1. We thought there might be drama at the start of the race, but instead it's the case it's at the end of the opening lap, not the beginning one. As meanwhile you can see there Danny Weston coming, that's Tom Weston coming on through, as well the 2 Weston brothers there making ground, in spite of the fact that his brother has not had it go his way so far. But after 1 lap, it is David Sampson who leads ahead of Richard Simnott P2, James Parker P3, Emil Koopmans P4, Mike Pollard P5. But a little bit further back, we do have to cut away briefly because our drivers made the way through turn number 7. Glenn Humberstone here on the inside, the wrist snapping loose very slightly as he comes out the corner, but bringing it together very nicely there to make the move on Jack Ward as they head down the back straight once again. It's a charge from Glenn Humberstone here as they head on down, and well, as they roll the way up towards turn number 10 right now. Indeed, all these battles are continuing. Jack Ward in the tow, they take speed to the inside here. Does Jack Ward? He's going to try and go for it for Willesee Racing. It's all in on the brakes here, and Ward comes back and nails that spot on as the silver driver get past his peer and up into P5 in the silver class. But as they make the way on down the hill, we do have Gordon Ramsay into the pits, I do believe for a drive-through penalty, which unfortunately has been awarded given the low penalty count here today. That time slider on that time 17, and as our drivers make the way on around once again onto lap number 3, it's been 2 opening laps, not without some major moments already, and David Stewart right now really trying to put that pressure onto Mark Oliver here as they make the way up the hill into turns 2 and 3, but he can't find a way through right now. But as they head on through, I can tell you also in the pits right now, or was in the pits, Joe Newman, Gordon Ramsay, Danny Weston, Ryan Davies, and that's your lot in terms of who's had to come into the pits. Some for instance, some for drive-through penalties, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see some more drive-through penalties later on in this race, or definitely in the feature. But meanwhile, focus on the positives in the here and now as we see it going a little bit wide there. Alistair Hatcher getting it wrong and losing the place to Lewis Willisey in front of him. It is the case of losing it out turn number 5, but as they roll the way on through, we've also got Mark Custers here. Remember, had that off at turn 2 on lap number 2, and the Gold Drive's got to try and cut his way all the way out through the field to Samsung at Cannon Esports as he makes his way after what is in front of him there. Weston, that's Tom Weston, and then he'll be going after Richard White. But looking from them to Simon Bamber a little bit further up the road here, your silver leader, who right now, after what's a brilliant pole lap in the silver class, is continuing to hold on here. Well, I think Bamber at this point might be considering taking some more gold spots if he can. Meanwhile, a bit further back, I can tell you that David Stewart has found his way past what is Mark Ollivander, breaking into turn number 10, and as they roll the way over the hill and down, we've got Berger into the pit lane. Misha Berger coming on in. I believe that is for a drive-through as well, and it is the season of the drive-through so far as they make the way on to the next lap. But charge on through, of course, that only makes overtaking more delicate and means you can't really afford to run wide or make even the slightest tap, otherwise you may end up picking that instant point that leads to you picking up a drive-through penalty. And as they make the way over the crest and down here, you see Mark Oliver briefly disappearing off screen. It's got a bit of latency there, as meanwhile, I think, what is he being passed? Oh, goodness me, and Mark Custer's in contact there, and also into the wall. That's Glenn Humberstone, who's got it wrong coming out of turn 3 and has spun into the tyre barrier, and that is not good news for the silver driver. It's simply gone wrong, and he's got to try and reverse his way back onto the circuit. Meanwhile, Steve Hughes here, we look to in P10 right now, running P3 in the silver class. He's trying to hold off Cameron Willisey here as they make the way out to turn number 7, chasing after his teammate of Travis Linscombe, Hatfield, as well. And I think he'll be hoping that Hatfield is able to give him a little bit of pace down the straight by just giving him the toe to keep him safe in the meantime. Of course, that's what you want from your teammate in front of them, to benefit you with them draft. It's normally in qualifying you ask for the draft, but in the race as well, I think it's the case that Hughes will be grateful for it here as they make their way down to the braking zone. And behind the Rabbit Hole Racing drives, it is the case that Cameron Willisey right now from Willisey Racing definitely feeling the race as he makes his way out to turn number 10 here, and it's the case he does want to try and get that move done with Ward behind. We see peeling into the pits there. That is Travis Linscombe Hatfield, I believe, for a drive-through. It is the case, unfortunate there, but Hatfield has been accruing at those penalty points, and as a result has been deemed awarded that drive-through penalty on that low count. And as Ward rolls his way through turn number 1 right now, it is the case trying to stay with Willisey and Hughes, trying to stay with his teammate in particular, and if he can do so, there may be some opportunities later in the race. But looking from the battle to be inside the top 10 to our leader of the top 10, indeed our race leader, David Sampson here, it is the case after that strong start he has not shown any signs of flinching as he makes his way through 6 and up into 7. But James Parker here on the ball and putting that pressure on Simnot as we ride on board with James Parker as he heads down the back straight. Now, of course, for him, he'll know that Simnor has not got the toe anymore, but this is where the difference in setup may apply, where some drivers may be running more aero downforce in terms of that rear wing compared to others, and those who are running greater downforce will lose out on the straights. And I wouldn't be surprised here if Parker is actually feeling a little bit of a pinch, given the fact that Simnor is actually pacing with him on the straights. He's not really closing in the toe, and that might be a sign there that Parker's running a little bit more rear wing, and that is causing him to lose out on the straightaways, whereas it is the case that Simnor, by comparison, is able to carry enough speed to keep his rival at bay as they head to the end of this lap. And as they charge all the way down towards turn number 1 here into the right hand, they flow. It is the case these three really right now trying to break away from Emil Koopmans behind, and Koopmans, to be fair, keeping this in a 4-way fight rather than a 3-way fight, and it is the case the Dutch driver not giving up as they roll the way down and around. But meanwhile, whilst this is happening, we do have pressure on Steve Hughes here into turn number 1, and it's the Willisey racing pair of Cameron Willisey and Jack Ward who are trying to find the way past the Rabbit Hole Racing driver as they head into turn number 3, and as they roll the way through, no way this time as Cameron Willisey there takes a lot of curve at turn number 3. He's got to be careful of that because it will unsettle the car, and as they make the way down through the S's once again, being so close at one point and now he's much further back, it is the case there that Hughes definitely withstanding that pressure right now from Willisey as they head up towards turn and up to 6, and as they charge on through, we look from them to Tom Weston in the meantime, who has gained 10 places since the start of this race. He has made his way all the way up into P15, and as he makes his way on through, got a bit of smoke being kicked up there. I believe that may be from a driver who got it a little bit wrong earlier on, but right now Weston doing a good job here of gaining places. He had a bit of a dire qualifying session, not really hooking up the lap much like his teammate Danny Weston, but it is the case that in this race so far he's just kept it stable, kept it sweet, and he's gained those places left, right and centre. But as he charges on down here, we look from him to Steve Hughes meanwhile, who's under pressure from Willisey in the battle for P9, and as they head into the braking zone here, Cameron Willisey up the inside, and you can see Woods trying to come through with him, but Hughes blocks him off there at turn 10B, and as they make the way over the hill here now, they've got to charge on down, and can Hughes keep Jack Ward at bay as they make the way through the right hand? And my gut feeling says that Ward right now now is feeling the urge to make a move into turn number 1, but I'm not sure as he takes a peek. He's not close enough to get it done, but having seen his teammate get on through, surely Jack Ward's got to take that as inspiration. If my teammate can do it, I can do it too. As they make the way onto another lap, time is running out in the sprint. Of course, it is the case. We've only got 3.5 minutes plus the final lap to go, and as they roll the way down the hill here through turns 2, 3, 4, and up in towards the S's once again, Jack Ward now will know that he's really got to get the move on, because if he doesn't get it done in the next couple of laps, he will have no time left. Meanwhile, further back here, despite the drive-through penalties being awarded to these drivers, they're still having racing action, and here's the case that Travis Linscombe-Hatfield is ahead of Lewis Willisey as they go onto this lap. Find his way on through, and now chasing after Misha Berger as they make the way down through turns 3 and 4 and into the S's. We can see also Matty Wild a little bit further back there and trying to close it up in P22 for DCW Racing Red. And well, the closest battles there really are in that battle for P19 between Linscombe-Hatfield and Willisey. That's Lewis Willisey in particular. And then further up the road in that battle for what is P10 between Steve Hughes and Jack Ward. Albeit I say that it is the case the battle for the lead is starting to come together again as well, as we look back to the leader here, and we can see drifting a little bit wide there coming through turn number 12. A bit of understeer in the car inherent. And as he makes his way into turn number 1 here, we are hearing it is the case that, well, I believe that Simon Bamber has found his way past Lee Holmes. I think Lee Holmes is into the pits. Yes, he is. I look outside my commentary box window, and that's confirmed on our timing tower. It's a drive-through penalty for Lee Holmes. But meanwhile, James Parker here, continuing unrelentlessly to try and barrage the back of Simnor. But Simnor's just not having any of it and not feeling phased by it at all as they make the way into turn number 5. You can see Emil Koopmans, however, has fallen back as they make the way through turn 5 and up towards 6. And as they roll the way in towards the right-hander right now, James Parker, I don't think he's going to have the move on this time around, but he's definitely getting closer and closer with every corner turn. But the problem for him is he just does not seem to have the speed. He needs to try and make the move into turn number 10 as they emerge from 7. This is where we'll see the gap between the two drivers starts to open up a little bit as they head on down. And I think for Parker, this is a sign that the setup on the car is fantastic for running behind the car. It's fantastic for the corners, but it's just got no speed as they make the way down. And you can see here, he's within 2 temps, but he never gets any closer, and that's the problem. And I think Simnor is feeling comfortable in the fact that every time that Parker's close, he's never quite close enough, and he can judge that accordingly. And Parker right now has really got to send it into a corner in order to be able to get the move done. So our drivers come down the hill, and it will be David Sampson who takes us on to the final lap here in this opening race of the season, with the white flag out for Barney Flag there. Koopmans a little bit further back. Meanwhile, in the battle for P13, it is the case here, or in fact the battle for P12, Mark Custer's the gold driver here, trying to make his way around the outside. Always Alistair Hatcher in the run to turn number 10. They come down the hill. It's Custers on the left, it's Hatcher on the right, and Custers has got his nose ahead. I think Hatcher backing out there, respecting the fact he's battling with a gold class driver and doesn't need to fight this. Meanwhile, a bit further back, we can see Cameron Willisey here trying to go around the outside of Misha Berger, but not being able to find it. But Linscombe-Hatfield's getting much closer here, with Willisey being off the optimal line, and Linscombe-Hatfield will be looking to try and make the move here for P18 class as they make the way through the final corner here onto their final lap respectively. Meanwhile, a bit further up the road, we can see that Custers under pressure is Mark Oliver. Well, in fact, that's not Custers there, that is Mark Oliver ahead of Richard White and Alistair Hatcher. Hatcher trying to go around the outside here of Richard White. They're side by side up the hill into 2 and 3, and Richard White backing out. I think sensibly knowing that 2 does not go into turn number 3. And as they make the way on out, we look from them back to our leaders, and David Sampson breaking away as they head down the back straight for the final time in this race. Meanwhile, Simnor under pressure, and this is the closest James Parker's ever gotten. Can he do it on the brakes? No, he can't. He has to back out. He's just not close enough to do it, and I think it's how it's going to end, for as he makes his way over the hill, one more corner between him and victory, the checker flag waves, and as he comes through the final corner, David Sampson takes the opening win of the season here at Road Atlanta, ahead of Richard Simnor and James Parker in P3. Behind them, it will be the case that we do have what is there, Emil Koopmans in P4, Mike Pollard P5, and then Simon Bamber is your silver winner for race number 1, round number 1, ahead of Stu Bickley. It will then be Jack Ward who comes on through to take P8, will be P2 in the silver class, ahead of Steve Hughes who comes home in P9. That's third place in the silver class of Steve Hughes, and then David Stewart will complete the top 10 there, overall P4 in the silver class, ahead of Lee Holmes who follows him on through. Here's the case that Mark Custers will come home in P12 there, ahead of Mark Oliver in short order as they roll the way on through. Quite a few drivers still to complete their races. P13, Richard White then holding off Misha Berger, and also what is Cameron Willisey there for P14, Berger P15, Willisey P16, Travis Linscombe-Hatfield P17, Alistair Hatcher P18, Matty Wild P19, and then to complete the top 20 very shortly, despite the damage on the car and missing a bonnet on that regard, the UKSimRacing driver Joe Newman comes on through at P20, ahead of Glenn Humberstone who will shortly come on around. And then we do have, I believe it will be Tom Weston who will be taking P22. He's just got ahead of Lewis Willesee right at the end in the run through turn number 10. Weston P22 for Zilla Racing, and Lewis Willesee will complete our finishers on the lead lap. And behind them, Ryan Davies, Gordon Ramsay and Danny Weston. Weston with that retirement. As we now take to a brief breather and, well, the interlude between the two races. And that gives us just a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, to tell you a little bit about what's coming at UKSimRacing. So it is the case, as we do take a very quick breather, that we do have upcoming an endurance series, or a mini-series if you will, consisting of 2 races, which are also multi-class, whereby if you're a fan of the Mazda MX-5, the touring car racing class cars, alternatively GT4s, there's something for everybody here, and it is the case that we have 2 events going on for only £4, and you can enter this pair of special 90-minute multi-class endurance events in featuring the classes that I've just mentioned. And well, we do love multi-class here at UKSimRacing, and what better way to show our love than hold these events on Wednesday the 28th of September at what will be the Daytona Oval Road Course, and also what is the Brands Hatch Grand Prix circuit on Wednesday the 9th of November. And I should point out, when I say the Daytona Oval Road Course, I'm referring to the infield and the outfield sections, not just the oval itself, and indeed it is known as the Daytona Road Course there. But as the case, these 2 races, you can take part in 2 90-minute endurance races in any one of those classes for only £4. And if you are interested in any of these series or events and want to sign up, it is the case you just need to follow these instructions. If you're an existing league driver at UKSimRacing, sign-ups are open, and you can essentially go to the Discord, the UKSimRacing Discord, and view the sign-ups there and sign up accordingly. Meanwhile, if you're not an existing league driver at UKSimRacing, you're sat there right now in your seat and thinking, I want to be part of this community because they seem to put on some fantastic series year in, year out, then it is the case. Firstly, you'll need to join the UKSimRacing Discord. That is a key requirement. You must do that to be able to take part. And then you need to head over to our official website, that's UKSimRacing.co.uk, and visit the appropriate league page, which will take you to a sign-up and payment page. Follow the instructions carefully to avoid disappointment. Indeed, those instructions are there for a purpose, and make sure you follow them, and that way you'll be on the grid for those 2 races later on this year. But with more racing to come, of course, it is the case, what a cracker of a season opener in the Road Atlanta Sprint race, or round number 1. And as we do return to circuit side right now, it is the case of our drivers just taking a brief breather in the pit lane. Others deciding to make their way back out on circuit already, including Lee Holmes here, using that 30 seconds or so that he has after coming out the pit lane here just to get himself set. But you can imagine all our drivers absolutely enjoying the racing there in that season opener, albeit perhaps not enjoying the drive-through penalties that were accrued, but of course those are being fixed for rounds 3, 4 and onwards. But we definitely saw plenty to talk about there, and what a brilliant drive from David Sampson in particular to take the season opening win. He'll of course be starting in P8 now in race number 2, or round number 2 we should really say, and it will be the case we'll be going over to that very shortly as the checker flag is out on the warm-up session, and we charge straight away into round number 2. Very shortly in fact here, as we do have that transition just coming up any moment now. But as the transition occurs here, it will be the case the grid will be formed. Unfortunately, we can't walk you through this grid due to limitations of the iRacing replay file, but it is the case we do know that Sampson will be starting P8, for example, and indeed we will have quite the mix-up in the grid. And that does give us a brief moment just to see how you guys and girls are getting on in the Twitch chat and how much you're enjoying it. And we do see there Porsche Cup Challenge saying Road Atlanta is hard to overtake. Indeed, it is a tricky one to overtake at. And also asking, how do I breathe? Well, they did say as part of commentating this series, breathing was not a requirement. They never stated it anywhere, so I'm not permitted to breathe. Joking aside, however, little breaths here and there, doing my best to make sure I take the oxygen as we go, and it was also the case there. I think we also do have Tom J. Weston saying hello and saying very hard. The track is so bumpy as well, very tough on these cars, and indeed we have seen these cars go through quite the wars as we see the grid starting to form up here, and little by little we're getting ready to go for what is 30 minutes of racing in round number 2 at Road Atlanta. It's the feature race, no pit stops on the board. It's just the case it's 2.5 times the race time distance, and now the grid is complete. We're ready to go racing. And it's lights out and away we go for race number 2 here as we see Jack Ward bogs down at the start, and well, it's Bickley and Bamber going left and right to him as they make their way up towards turn 1. Now as they do, Simon Bamber gets a brilliant start and he's holding off Bickley into turn 1. They roll the way for a bit further behind. Emil Cooper's been literally sandwiched off circuit. That is, I believe, James Parker running very wide. We lost him off camera out of turn 1, but here's the case, he's run very wide and deep out the corner onto the grass. And Misha Berger gains some places as well as they roll the way down through turns 2, 3 and 4 in quick succession. But of course, with that top 8 inverted inverted. That does shake up the field and mean that some of the faster drivers have to cut their way up through the field quicker than most. But meanwhile, Travis Linscombe Hatfield getting a good start up to P18 there as they all make the way through the opening sequence of corners and the S's. And Danny Weston, meanwhile, all over the back of Glenn Humberstone as they make the way out to turn number 5 and up towards turn number 6. But as they charge the way on up, we can see Richard White here up the inside of Mark Oliver. Oh goodness me, Gordon Ramsay down the inside, a bit of contact with Mark Oliver, and they go around, and we can see also there White getting a bit wrong, going a bit deep. And as they roll the way out of the corner here, it is the case a little bit further back. We can see all of our drivers flying on through, and well, we've got one car off in the rear of the picture there, and that is, I believe, I'm not 100% sure who that is. That's one of the Sim and machines that's parked off circuit. But meanwhile, looking up front, we can see that Mike Pollard here, the DCW Racing blue driver, trying to keep the position here as they roll the way through the chicane, and as they come on through in P4 currently. Well, he does have Koopmans trying to go all the way around the outside. Now, can Koopmans get this done? This is bold to try and go around the outside. No, he has to wait as they roll the way to the end of lap number 1. So after one lap, it's Simon Bamber who leads, followed by Stuart Bickley in P2, followed by Jack Ward P3, Mike Pollard in P4 here, followed ahead of Emil Koopmans P5. Then we've got David Sampson P6, Richard Simler in P7, Steve Hughes in P8. Meanwhile, we can see Sampson again, a good run as they make the way over the crest, and he's going to take the place down for Simnor, but he's not quite close enough to make it 2 from 2 versus Pollard as they roll the way down. Meanwhile, further back, Emil Koopmans holding at bay Lee Holmes and David Stewart here, and we're getting quite the traffic jam behind Emil Koopmans, and that's not to besmirch his reputation. It's the fact that he's having to defend very hard, and Mark Custer's in the mix here. It's the case of Sampson again, an esports driver, I think, thinking, well, if Sampson can get through, why can't I as well? As they make the way all the way up towards turn number 6 right now. You can see Custer's looking around the outside here of David Stewart as they make them to the break-in side, but he's forced to go a little bit wide here as they roll the way on through. He's not going to find his way through, and a bit of contact with Misha Berger behind as meanwhile, oh, somebody's been turned there, and as they all come through, it looks like there's going to be further contact between drivers making the way through, and it's a disaster at turn number 7. We've got a car on its roof. That's David Stewart rolling over, I think. No, that's Lee Holmes from 88 Tech Racing, but the point being multiple drivers coming together there through turn number 7, and it's a disaster for many, but the racing must go on. I believe it was a little bit of contact in the battle for P10 that set off a chain reaction. As they make their way down towards turn number 10 right now, it is the case whilst many drivers were caught up in that, some have benefited massively, and in particular Travis Linscombe Hatfield, when we last looked in, was in P18. Now he's up to P10 as he makes his way out to turn 10 and down towards the end of this lap. We've got multiple drivers in the pit lane. We've got Simon Bamber, we've also got Mark Oliver, we've got Hatcher, Holmes, Custard, White, Ramsey and Willisey all in the pit lane. Did multiple retirements as well due to damage picked up on the cars, and well, it's completely understandable there. That was a bit of a freak moment at turn number 7, but it does happen. But I'm pleased to announce that all of our drivers are doing okay. They've been able to get out the cars or get the cars to the pit, have been towed to the pit, and they're all doing all right. But meanwhile, as our drivers roll the way on down and around right now, those still remaining, it is the case we look from the battle for P10 up towards P3 right now. And this is Mike Pollard, of course, getting a great start to his race as he holds off Sampson here, but Sampson's going to go all the way around the outside. Now this is bold from David Sampson, and if he can make this work, that's going to be tremendous in his charge off to Warden Bickley. Now it's a drag race all the way down the back straight here, and you can see behind it's the case that Richard Simnor trying to get involved here with his teammate from DCW Racing, but in the drag race all the way up towards turn number 10, it's Pollard on the left, Sampson on the right as they head towards the braking zone. The camera turns around as they make the way on in. It's going to be Sampson on the inside. And onto the brakes they go here as they roll the way on down. But Pollard going a little bit deeper, but Sampson in the end getting Pollard to go deep, and in return just simply careening his way out the inside. Now I think that Simnor at this point will be asking for his teammate to try and just let him go to go hunting after Sampson as they make the way through turn number 12. And as they roll the way through the right hand here, we're only 4 minutes into this race. We've still got plenty to go. Simnor there is the case, rolling his way behind Pollard, but Pollard goes wide and still does not give in and holds on to that P4 for the time being as they roll the way onto the next lap. Behind them, Emil Koopmans right now closing up once again, the Dutchman in P6, the privateer, as he rolls his way down the hill. And then we do have quite the battle building up versus between James Parker and what is it, Misha Berger for P9 right now. P7 in the gold class between these two as they make the way down and through the S's here. And Parker, of course, with that difficult start, which saw him go off circuit at turn number 1, deciding to rally cross there. I think going a bit too deep. But Misha Berger with damage to the car, and Parker's going to try and squeeze through, but he backs off there as we've got a car across the circuit. Oh, goodness me. And that, I believe, unless I'm mistaken, that is Bamber as another car's in the contact there, and that's Weston, who literally, after gaining multiple places, Tom Weston has now fallen victim to a stricken car at turn 5 and is going to lose out considerably as Alistair Hatcher, meanwhile, charges on through there and up to P14. He goes to 88 Tech Racing at Tim Purple as they make the way on through to the next lap. But as they roll the way around now, you can see that Weston definitely a bit of frustration now after what was a brilliant start for the Zilla Racing driver. It's all come unfounded, and we've still got 25 minutes to go. But whilst we may have less and less drivers on circuit right now, it is the case, we still have plenty of quality racing action to come. There's no doubt about that, as we still do have the stack for P4 here. We've seen Simner, also Pollard and Koopmans behind, and you can see between them we've got Willesee there, and I do believe that's the number 43 car of what is there, Karen Willesee, who's between them a lap down right now after everything that's happened. You can understand why some drivers may be off a lap already as they make the way around still, and as we can see here is the case that Richard Simnot trying to find his way to break away from his teammate Pollard and Koopmans as well and go hunting after Samson, but I would imagine that Samson right now is going to be itching to get a little bit closer to Jack Ward as he makes his way through turn number 5, and he's only got 2 more drivers to pick off to try and make it a double today at Road Atlanta as they make the way up towards turn number 6. Meanwhile, further back here, Matty Wild in the pursuit of Glenn Humberstone as they make the way down through the S's, and we ride on board the gearbox here of the ATEC Tech Racing team Cyan driver of Humberstone as they make the way through turn number 5. As they head up the hill, we do say hello there to a Newman Pass there, saying I didn't realise there was this much death in the race. Indeed, quite a surprising number of incidents, but to be fair, I do think the drivers involved then may be told to calm things down a little bit ahead of rounds 3 and 4. Of course, not portioning the blame to anyone there, but it is the case the season opener. It's always going to be hot and fiery. It is the case everybody absolutely itching to make a statement, but also saying about David Sampson's move around the outside and the run down towards turn number 10. Indeed, what a brilliant move, but as we see Humberstone here breaking away initially, and it is the case that Matty Wild only very gradually closing right now and run down the back straight. Again, I think Matty Wild's got more pressure behind from Ryan Davies, the gold class driver, you can briefly see there in the rear of the picture as they make the way into the braking zone here for turn number 10 as they roll the way through in the left to right hander here. It is the case that Ryan Davies looking to try and regain after what was a very difficult round number 1 race, and the fact it all went so horribly wrong in the sprint, but in the feature it's going a little bit more right, and that may just give them the benefit later on here. It's really our top 13 has broken away from the rest of the field, and then in 14th we've got Alistair Hatcher here. Whilst he's been involved in a bit of the carnage, he's been able to steer clear of most of it, and right now he's running on a very lonesome P14 as he heads onto another lap. But we look from him all the way out towards the front here, and here's Jack Ward right now, the silver leader in P2, and of course getting a brilliant start, Jack Ward, as he makes his way through turn 6 and 7. He's got Samson behind him, and I would be imagining that Samson is going to be given the opportunity to come through here. I don't imagine that Jack Ward is going to fight this one too hard, for the simple reason he's got a huge opportunity to pick up a silver class win on round number 2, and he will not want to throw it away by simply battling too hard with the gold drivers. But then again, could he be looking to try and make a statement? Could he potentially be trying to get those overall points? We'll have to wait and see as they make the way down, but I don't think there's overall points up for grabs here. I think it is more class-centric points, unless I'm very much mistaken, and Ward right now, seeing that Samson's not close enough at this time, but as they make the way through turn number 10 and up towards 11 and through down towards 12 here, we look a little bit further back to Newman versus what is Linscombe Hatfield there, or as they roll the way on through. In fact, that is James Parker, my apologies there, holding Newman at bay as they make the way down the hill. The privateer keeping the Sim and Racer behind as they make the way for the right hand. In fact, Parker making the move for P8 there. I've just had it clarified in my right ear as they make the way into turn number 1, and James Parker, well, it was a difficult start for him, but he is gradually making his way out the field. And to be fair to James Parker, when we look at the lap times, which are not available on your screen for a comparison, it is the case that James Parker is currently running as fast as the top 3. He is pushing hard and trying to go hunting after positions. But speaking of another driver going hunting after positions, it is the case that Mike Pollard here is being hunted down by Emil Koopmans as they make the way into turn number 6, and ahead of them you've got the freeway battle for P2 with Jack Ward right at the head of it, and this is really leading to a 5-way battle for P2 as they make their way down the back straight once again. But as they charge all the way down here, you can see how Koopmans and Pollard in a little bit of a battle for themselves right now, and the fact that Pollard's not getting that exit of a turn number 7 he wants to, and therefore Koopmans is actually lagging behind in terms of Koopmans being held up a little bit between the corners. And as they make the way through the kink and down towards turn number 10 here, I wouldn't be surprised if their battle focuses more on their positions, as we see Samson going up the inside here of Jack Ward, who goes a bit deep, and Ward on the inside there. He's got to be careful because Richard Simmons trying to come on around, and here it becomes the big domino chain as we see that Pollard's going to try and go around the outside as well. At this point, I think Ward has just got to politely stay off the throttle and hope that he doesn't get collected. But the problem for Jack Ward is he's lost a lot of time, and right now as they make the way onto another lap, now Steve Hughes is only 2.5 seconds behind Ward, and you can see that silver class winning the distance now, and it's becoming more and more believable. So I think Ward was smart there, but I think he's lost a lot of time in being smart, and what it's done is essentially it's given Hughes a little bit more motivation as they make the way down the hill in towards the S's here. But of course, with the way it's all happened, it does mean that Koopmans and Pollard are still together as they now charge through at turn number 5 here this time around. Meanwhile, looking from them to a gold driver who's trying to come up through the field, much like James Parker. Here's Ryan Davies, who right now battling with, I believe there, unless I'm mistaken, that is Matty Wild, up the inside of Matty Wild into turn number 3, and gets the move done there for P11 overall. But that's not a class position change, of course, because Matty Wild is in the silver class by comparison with Davies in the gold class. But as they roll the way up the hill right now, Davies are not too far off. They're going hunting after Travis Lenscombe Hatfield. 8 seconds is the gap, but you can imagine he'll likely chop that down rather rapidly if he gets his foot down and pushes through it. But meanwhile, we look from him to Misha Berger behind here, and it is the case here. The Saints driver chasing after David Stewart as they make the way over the hill through 11 and into 12, and as they make the way over the apex here, you can see Berger backing off there. 2 does not go into 1 in these cars at turn number 12. It's the case they do not have the aero package for it to go side by side through 12 unless they both lift off, and as they make their way through turn number 1 here, Berger having to wait a later opportunity to emerge. Meanwhile, looking a bit further up the road, well, it is the case here. Here is your race leader of Stu Bickley, the DCW Racing Blue driver, very comfortably up front right now by a margin of 3.4 seconds. And in terms of the laps, he is matching Samson's laps right now. Samson has been the fastest man on the circuit. There's no doubt about that. You can see him in the rear of the picture there as the long chain of the battle for P2 comes on its way through the S's and up towards turn number 5. But it's Emil Koopmans in particular right now. He's starting to gain as we ride on board here with the Dutchman as he chases after Bollard. Now the privateer here trying to make a move on the DCW Racing drivers. They head up towards turn number 6. Can he find his way into the right-hander on the inside? No, he can't. He's a bit too far back, but he'll be trying to get that better run this time out of 7. Can he finally get it done at long last? He has to fight a little bit of snap oversteer there on corner exit, and that's that tiny little bit of oversteer which has cost him. You can see Bollard's able to put a 10th between the two of them before they both start to get up to speed on the straight, and then the slipstream starts to take effect for Koopmans, and that's the thing. He's just these little niggly moments are holding him back, and as he makes his way down towards turn number 10 here, it's the case that Koopmans once again finds himself having to watch the rear of Pollard rather than trying to move up the inside for another position. But to be fair, it could just be as much time management here as we go deeper and deeper into the race as they roll the way through turns 11 and 12 here, and Koopmans keeping that pressure on right now, maybe hoping that Pollard makes a mistake later on as they head up towards turn number 1. But as they roll the way on through, we look to Misha Berger meanwhile, who, as the leaders start to come up behind Berger, it is again still trying to find his way up past where it's David Stewart as they make the way down through the S's. But as he gives hot pursuit here, is the case in that dirt here. You can see a Berger effect. I think there's also some damage on the front left-hand side of the car from the driver's perspective, front right, when we look at the front of the car on the camera. And I do believe that damage may be hurting him through the S's there, just causing the car to not be as comfortable on turning at the medium-speed sweepers. And that may be just holding Berger back a little bit more in terms of being able to close that deficit. But we look a little bit further up the road from P17 to P13. And we can see here it's the 88 Tech racing at Team Purple driver with Glenn Humberstone behind him, and that is Alistair Hatcher. Humberstone up the inside, and Glenn Humberstone for the Cyan outfit from 88 Tech. It is the case they swap places here, and I do believe it is the case that Humberstone feeling a little bit more racy at this point in the race and making his way through up into P13. That's P5 in the silver class. His next target is 14 seconds up the road. It's Matty Wild, who is running in P12. But as they make the way down the hill here, it is the case the racing has spaced out a little bit further down the field, of course, for all the instants and drive-throughs we've had so far, but it is the case it's very close up front still, and we'll focus our attentions up in the battle for P2 as we do see David Sampson here. It's now starting to bring down the gap to Stuart Bickley. That last lap from Bickley, a 20.99, Sampson a 20.98, so only by 100th there as he brought it down. But the trend is he is gradually chipping away by about a 10th a lap, Sampson versus Bickley. We see Bickley there briefly going through the camera, but as they roll the way down through the hill, we look to the blimp camera here to give you an idea of all these Porsche 992s are running in sequence on through, and it is the case that right now they seem a little bit stationary at the moment, but this could be the calm before the storm, to be fair, and at any moment it could really kick off once again. But I do think we are starting to see a little bit of a chess game as well between Koopmans, Pollard, Simnot and Sampson, whereby all 4 drivers are running on very similar pace, it must be said, but it is the case that they're all not quite able to make the move on one another, and I think just sizing one another up, given the fact it is the start of the season as well, these drivers may not be necessarily familiar with racing one another too closely, and therefore they're doing a little bit of study work here. It's almost as if the pen and paper's out in the cockpit, they're making those mental notes of what the driver in front does, where they're stronger, where they're weaker, and that could apply later on in terms of potential overtakes coming up as they make the way down the back straight. But as they charge their way on down, it is the case that we do see from them James Parker has closed up to the back of Steve Hughes here in his recovery drive after that tumultuous start, and as they make the way down towards turn number 10 at the moment, the 120 driver here looking for a potential move on the silver class driver, Steve Hughes. He's not close enough to make it, however, as they roll the way through the corner, and Steve Hughes holds on for now, but I wonder if he's looking in his rearview mirror and thinking about when, oh goodness, I was going to say when Parker comes on through, but Parker losing the rear end there as he come over the hill at turn number 11 as he gets himself back back up to speed. That is a catch and a half. If he's not considered playing cricket, he may want to sign up for a cricket team there, because if he can catch like that, he'll be able to catch a ball as a fielder very nicely, because that was a very hairy moment for James Parker. But as he brings it back up to speed right now, that's why his 9 lives used up. And indeed, as he charges on right now, he goes hunting after the rabbit hole race, and driver Steve Hughes once again, albeit the gap now is 2.5 seconds he's got to close on down. But as he rolls his way down the hill here, it is the case that we do look from him to what is a driver a little bit further back, and one who's on a charge as well, and that is Danny Weston here, who after it all went very well at the start, then it went a bit wrong. It is the case that Weston is back up to speed. He's got White behind him there, albeit White is a lap down. That is Richard White for clarity, and as they make the way onto another lap here, Danny Weston in P15 lapping quite well at this point in time, to be fair. That last lap wasn't as good, it was a 24, but I do believe he was having to contest with find his way past White in terms of the blue flag negotiation. In this case, the UKSimRacing driver actually lapping on top 10 pace right now. We look forward to seeing how that comes on through later on, because his next target is Alistair Hatcher, who is only 3.2 seconds up the road, and the number 11 driver here is starting to fly a little bit. I think getting some motivation after a difficult race number 1, or round number 1. It is the case in this second round, he's doing a little bit stronger in terms of the pace, and he may just have simply hooked it up over the course of the time so far. But as he heads up towards turn at number 6, we look a little bit further back there, and it is the case we see David Stewart's got a driver off there. I believe that is Misha Berger, who's had it go very wrong at turn number 2, no less, into the wall, and David Stewart making his way on through. There were some yellow flags waving, and well, Stewart at this point I think just trying to run away from Holmes behind. Holmes being down in P23, that's Lee Holmes a lap down, but it is the case. In fact, that's Bickley behind. My apologies, I'll clarify that in the fact that is your race leader, Stu Bickley behind, and as he makes his way a little bit closer up to the back of Stewart here, he'll be hoping that he's able to find his way past Stewart in the draft down the back straight, so he can gain time, not lose time in the charge, because of the simple reason here, when you come up behind a what you call a quote-unquote back marker, or a driver who is a lap down from you, it is the case you never want to lose time in finding your way past them. You want to gain as much as possible, or neutralise the time you lose, and having the draft all the way down the back straight can be very effective here if the driver does know you're trying to capitalise on it. But Bickley right now is gradually being reeled in by Samson, Simnot and Pollard. That gap has come down to 2.7 seconds. We do see there, it is the case Stewart goes a bit deep, but Bickley is not able to find his way on through. Meanwhile, it's Parker versus Hughes here as they make their way down the back straight into turn number 10, and before we get to the braking zone, Parker is past and up another position over. He's up to P7. His next target is Jack Ward, the silver class leader, who is 5 seconds up the road, and then he's got the mammoth task of closing down the top 5. And right now, I can tell you this, if you're looking for the fastest man on circuit, as he sets a 20.81, this is the guy who's flying right now. James Parker is on a charge. He's still got time to go, 12 minutes on the clock. That equates to approximately what will be about 7 more laps, and this rate of closure, he could be there nipping at the heels of the top 5 on the final couple of laps if he keeps this up. He's just got to keep the momentum and keep his cool. But to be fair, after that one near miss moment at turn number 11, I think he now knows what the limit is, and he's making sure to stay right on it as he charges out of turn number 5 and up towards 6. Meanwhile, up front, then the fact he's still caught behind Stewart here, it is the case that Bickley is now falling back into the clutches of David Sampson. I don't think Stewart's done anything wrong, to be fair. I think it's the case that Bickley just cannot get close enough to be able to effectively find his way past the driver who's a lap down at this point, and it's causing Sampson, Simner and Pollard to all come up close as the DCW Racing blue driver here makes his way on the brakes. He's going to have to force the issue past into turn number 10 here. He's got to go for this Bickley, as we see there. Stewart goes a bit deep, and that's the Parker on Apex on the grass, and then bring it on through off Apex, and as they make the way over the ridge of turn number 11, you can see Sampson on the inside as they head on down. Wonderful camera shot here from their curve as you see them make the way past at full speed, and as they do, well, we have lost David Stewart. He's into the wall, I think, at turn number 12. What on earth has happened to David Stewart? Indeed, he's gone to the grass. I think he's had a near miss with the wall, unless I'm very much mistaken, but David Stewart trying to get out of the way and let the battle for the lead commence, as meanwhile, as the privateer rejoins, it's the case that David Sampson right now in P2 is on a charge here, and he could smell that win in the distance, albeit that win's now 1.5 seconds up the road, given the fact that he had his troubles in getting past Stewart himself, making his way down for 11 and 12. But as Sampson comes on through at turn number 5 here, it's the case that we do have the DCW Racing crew all around him here and try to spot the odd one out. And you've got DCW Racing red and blue surrounding Sampson here, and it is the case the Samsonoid K9 Esports driver trying to upset what could be a potential triple podium for DCW Racing as they make the way out to turn number 7. But as they make the way up towards turn number 10, right now you can see Pollard very close to his teammate here, and I think there might be a position switch coming between the two drivers. Pollard's going to go to what will be the inside into turn 10. Meanwhile, sitting on the outside here, and Pollard's got the draft, he's got the overspeed. They head down the hill Into the braking zone they go here with 10 minutes to go, and Pollard gets the move done there. I think Richard Simnod being quite obliging, to be fair, and not really costing Pollard any time. They want to go hunting after Sampson and help Bickley out in terms of trying to make life easier, but I say that, and in fact it's a race down for 11 into 12. They're side by side through, and I think the gloves have come off very slightly here between the two DCW racing drivers as they make their way up towards turn number 1. Onto lap number 16 they go. 10 minutes remain plus the final lap, and right now I think we've got a battle for P3 growing between teammates and a battle for the lead is on the horizon as well. But as they make the way on around here, we look to Danny Weston with a little bit of a lock up there on the front right, brake into turn number 6. But the point being, he's chasing after Alistair Hatcher, and right now the Zilla Racing driver is really pushing on here. And as I said earlier, his pace right now is top 10 pace. He chases after Hatcher, albeit behind him Simon Bamber 45 seconds back. It's the case that Bamber's not going to be close enough to interfere in this battle, and indeed he'll be focusing on his own race. We briefly lose Danny Weston there due to a bit of a connectivity issue, and well, the connectivity issues could be considered to be the equivalent of a potential engine blow-up cone. Of course, we don't wish that on anyone for them to disconnect or have any technical failures as the racing wears on here, but it is the case that Weston has some slight internet issues, and hopefully those do not go any further than just intermittent. But meanwhile, Alistair Hatch here under pressure as he makes his way out the final corner. Weston very close here. Will Weston go for the move into turn number 1? This is the battle for his P6 in the silver class, and in the end, Hatcher goes in very strong into turn 1, that inside line. I think Weston there backed off a little bit, thinking that Hatcher was going to overcook it, but Hatcher brought it together on the exit of 1 as they head down the hill through turns at 3 and 4 very shortly. Well, Hatcher at the moment just not composed through the S's here, or in the run to the S's we should say, compared to Weston. I think that's where Weston's gaining the time as we hear that Emil Koopmans is into the pits. I believe that is for a drive-through, because we have not heard that he's been involved in any sort of incident. That releases Jack Ward up into P5, the silver leader, who we haven't talked about for some time, but it is the case now he's running in P5. He could get a top 5 today, and being in the silver class as well, that would be a huge achievement. There's no doubt about that, as Alistair Hatcher continues to try and hold off Weston as they make their way out of turn at number 7, and Danny Weston loses the rear, and it's all gone wrong for the Zilla Racing driver. Fortunately for him, he can bring it on around, and he's got a 40-second gap or so to Simon Bamber, so he doesn't have to worry about losing any places, but he'll be kicking himself for that when it was all looking as though it's P13 up for grabs. In the end, the number 13 struck him unlucky, and it is the case he's turned it around, and he brings it back together now and goes chasing after Alistair Hatcher. But now the gap has gone from a couple of attempts to 12.5 seconds, and that is going to be a lot harder to close down. But meanwhile, as he brings himself back up to speed, we look to the ongoing battle here for P3 between Simnor and Pollard as they make their way down the back straight, and David Sampson, I can tell you right now, is not close enough with Bickley at this time. It does look as though there's a bit of a stalemate for the battle for the lead, where Bickley, that last lap of 20.94, and meanwhile it was the case for Sampson at 20.97. Simnor and Pollard are exchanging lap time by comparison on very close proximity as they make the way down the hill here into turn number 12. It is the case, you can see that personal best for both Bickley and Sampson, a 20.646 for Bickley, a 20.409 for Sampson. It is the case that Sampson's pushing, Bickley's pushing hard as well, and Pollard is really going for it now. 20.73 there, that is his fastest lap of the race. He's trying to find his way back past Simnor right towards the end. He wants to be on that podium, although he would love to see his teammate there. I think he'd love to be the one who stands on that bottom step of the overall podium as they make their way down, indeed the gold class podium as well. But looking from a drivers who are trying to battle for the podium to one driver who I think it knows that unless he makes a major error now is a dead certain to be on the podium for the silver class. It is Jack Ward who leads the silver class right now for UKSimRacing, running his way through turn number 5 here. He's got James Parker closing up behind him, the gold driver, but you've got to go a long way of 6.5 seconds back to find Steve Hughes, the next silver driver for Rabbit Hole Racing, running P2 in class, P7 overall. And to be fair to Steve Hughes, he has not put a foot wrong all race. He stayed clear of the trouble, and he's simply just not quite at the pace to close up to Jack Ward. But then again, a P2 in round number 2 at Road Atlanta, I think he'll bite your arm off for it, given this is perhaps one of the most challenging circuits to open the season up at, given it's such a roller coaster ride and it can always go wrong at any moment. It is the case here. A place on the podium is one that you'll absolutely love to have, there's no doubt. But as he makes his way down the back straight here, we must cap back up to our leaders here, where it is the case that Bickley on this last lap has actually been caught a little bit by David Sampson, and as he comes to a time life, and this has been a slower lap from Bickley, it's a 21.1 versus a 20.9 for Sampson. Sampson is closing, he's starting to tighten the noose here as they make their way up towards turn number 2, and as they do, can the number 7 driver here get it done late on in the proceedings, or will Bickley still have enough in the tank? As we say hello there to Glenzil for the first time in the UKSimRacing chat. I do believe that may actually be Glenn Humberstone, unless I'm mistaken. But I hope you're doing well, Glenn Zill, and well, welcome to the broadcast. But as our drivers make the way on around here, it is the case that we do look from our leaders back to James Parker, and Parker here very close to the back of Jack Ward as they come through the S's. He'll be looking to make that move with 5 minutes on the clock, and well, it'll be another overall place gained here. Won't mean too much other than he's managed to clear all the silver drives in his recovery drive, but as he heads in towards turn number 6 up the inside there, and I don't think Jack Ward was going to fight that one hard, and he rolls his way through the right hand of that, and Parker up to P5. But as they head on through here, we look a little bit further back here to Richard White in P18 right now, chasing it down with Tom Weston as they head in towards the braking zone here for turn number 10. And it is the case that Richard White into left into right of the chicane is the case, trying to find his way past the Zilla Racing driver here, who's only half a second up the road from him. And to be fair, these guys battling for P10 in the silver class, the last place in their respective top 10 as they make the way on down. And meanwhile, Glenn Humberstone has found his way past Matty Wild for P11, and that's P4 in the silver class. And I believe Matty Wild's been involved in an instant through it's the start of the S's, and he's dropped back to the pits. In fact, he's had to be towed back, which means that Glenn Humberstone now is in the first of the places outside of the silver podium, as meanwhile Jack Ward into the pits for a drive-through. Now, how will this play out? Well, I think that's going to release Steve Hughes, surely. And Hughes is going to come on through here to take the lead of the silver class with only 4 minutes to go, as it's the case that Wood into the pits for a drive-through penalty. And what about the rest of the silver class? Well, Travis Linscombe-Hatfield comes on down and around here. It is late drama in the silver class after what was looking to be a very straightforward race. Now, is Wood? Well, Wood, in fact, is currently stationary. So it's the case there that Travis Linscombe-Hatfield comes on through, and Wood is going to drop even further down as he takes a stop, in fact. I wonder what exactly he's gone wrong, but Ward comes on back out, and it's P3 for Jack Ward now in the silver class of UKSimRacing, not the lead of the race, and Steve Hughes finds himself in a great place. But meanwhile, in the battle for P3 overall in the gold class, it's Pollard who tries to come past Richard Simnor here, and Simnor pinned behind a back marker car of White as they head up towards the braking zone here for turn number 10. And as they head on in, it's the case that Simnor now sits behind his teammate as they make the way on through. But I would not be surprised if Simnor tries to come back one last time between now and the very end as they roll the way out of turn number 10 and through 11 and 12 very shortly. But it is all kicking off here as meanwhile a bit further back, Emil Koemans is trying to find his way past Steve Hughes for P6. Now up the inside he goes here, not upside the in he goes. It is the case they roll the way through, under braking it. Koemans comes on through on the inside and gets the move done there for P6. And as he rolls his way on out here, I think Steve Hughes, much like what we saw from Jack Ward earlier, knowing when the gold class drivers are coming on through and not fighting this one hard at all, and knowing that it's his win that's on the line, he doesn't need to disrupt his flow. But as he heads onto another lap here, we do wait to see Travis Linscombe-Hatfield coming down the hill and onto another lap. Only 2 more to go after the one they've just completed. And as the American makes his way up towards turn number 1 here, I think he'll be feeling very confident now that things are swinging his way for a big result as he heads up the hill. But as he makes his way on through, it is a bit further back. Ryan Davies closing little by little on Jack Ward here, the gold driver in P10, completing the top 10 overall, P7 in the gold class here. Well, the privateer has had a very up and down evening at Road Atlanta. Race number 1, it did not work out at all. Round number 1, we should say. And in round number 2 here so far, he has been a recovery driver, much like many, and he's been able to get himself back into the overall top 10 as he heads on down. But Matty Wild has just left the pit lane from what we gather. It is the case he's making his way back out into the circuit. He'll be re-emerging in P16, the silver class driver. That will be in effect what is P9 in the silver class, but with all things all starting to settle, we do look to your race leader here who goes on to the final lap. It is the case rolling his way on through. In fact, it's not the final lap. We're going to have one more lap after this. We've got time for another lap, so we will have 23 laps here in round number 2 in this feature race. And as Stu Bickley rolls as well up the hill, all he needs to do right now is manage this gap to David Sampson, a gap of 1.2 seconds. But you can see there as they both jump over the curve at turn number 3. Both drivers absolutely hammering the circuit right now. The car's in its prime. It's light with fuel. The tyres are all heated up, and they're both wanting to win this. But the thing is, Sampson is really, when he gets it right through the S's there, he's just taken 4 attempts out of Bickley in the succession of turns 1 through to 5, and that shows you the power of the Sampson that Ken Esports drivers. He makes his way into turn number 7. When he hooks it up, he is absolutely flying, not just in terms of pace, but also literally flying over those curves. And as he makes his way down the back straight, well, it's the case that Stu Bickley, before he was safe on the penultimate lap, I think he's got to look in his rearview mirror and his timing tower very shortly and recognise the fact he's not safe anymore, because Sampson is now only 6.5 tenths behind as they head into the chicane for the penultimate time. As they roll the way onto the brakes here, the Britain right now of Sampson trying to get close enough to make a move on the final lap. He's been saving up here. He backed it off, I reckon, and now he's got that opportunity. One more lap remains. And as they come down the hill, who is it going to be who crosses the line, the winner the next time around? Will it be Stu Bickley from what is DCW Racing Blue, or will it be David Sampson from what is Samsung at Ken Esports? Well, as they make the way up the hill now, time will tell as they roll the way through, and we ride on board here with Sampson for the final lap as he makes his way over the crest into turn number 2 and down into 3, and this is where he's stronger, but of course now he's got the dirty air to contend with as he flows through 4 and into the S's they fall. And as they roll the way down the hill here, taking a bit of an earlier apex there, Sampson, to mitigate the dirty air off the front of the car, off the car in front I should say, and as he makes his way out turn number 5, you can see Bickley goes a little bit wide. He's got to be careful as he goes defensive here. Bickley, he knows that Sampson's close down. Sampson can start to tease out a move, but as they head into turn number 6 here, no shot this time around as they roll the way into turn number 7, heading for the right hander here. However, Bickley does not get it exactly right and actually makes quite a ham sandwich of it as they make the way down towards turn number 10. Now it's a long run here. Sampson's in the draft, he'll inch closer and closer and closer, and as he gets tighter and tighter towards the rear of that Porsche in front, he's going to look to the outside here. Bickley defends as they make the way down the hill. Bickley defends the inside, Sampson on the outside, onto the brakes they go, and Bickley's not going to give this one up as they roll the way through the chicane. Sampson, however, gets a little bit of oversteer on the corner, and I think that could settle it. Whereas Stu Bickley makes his way over the hill, down he comes, and the checker flag is waited to wave, and as he comes through the final corner, Stu Bickley makes it the win in round number 2 here at Road Atlanta, ahead of David Sampson, followed by Mike Pollard in P3, and then it will be Richardson in P4, followed by James Park, who completes the top 5 there, and then it will be Emil Koopmans in P6 very shortly as they make the way down through the hill to complete their race. And as he comes on through here, great drive from Koopmans, just not on the pace compared to the top 4 in particular, and then it will be Steve Hughes who comes on through here to take the silver class win in a late dramatic turn where Jack Ward had to come into the pits. It is the case that Steve Hughes takes the win in round number 2 for Rabbit Hole Racing ahead of Travis Linscombe-Hatfield. Great drive from Linscombe-Hatfield as well to take P1, P2 for Rabbit Hole Racing. Jack Ward will come on home in P3 in the end of the silver class, P9 overall for Willesee Racing, knowing what could have been, and it's Ryan Davies who gets it wrong, corner exit at 12, but he's crossed the line in a crumpled Porsche in P10, and then it will be Glenn Humberstone a little bit shortly after who'll come on home to complete the last driver who finishes on the lead lap here in P11 as he comes on around through the chicane and into the end of his race. But my goodness, what a dramatic race number 2, indeed round number 2 here at Road Atlanta as Glenn Humberstone completes his race at 88 Tech Racing Team Sion. That is P4 in class, and Alistair Hatcher completes the top 5 there for 88 Tech Racing Team Purple in the silver class. He has already taken his checker flag, and that is his race complete. But as we look to the scenic camera here, let's take you through those race results for race number 2. So it is the case, and after 30 minutes of racing in the feature race in round number 2 here of the Porsche Cup Season 4, hosted by UKSimRacing today at Road Atlanta, Stu Bickley taking that win ahead of David Sampson by 6 attempts. A brilliant battle to the end between the two of them, with Mike Pollard completing the top 3. Richardson not P4 ahead of James Parker in P5, and then Emil Koopmans taking that P6, and then it was Steve Hughes who made it be the case that he was the winner in the silver class in P7 there. The Rabbit Hole Racing driver leading home a 1-2 ahead of his teammate Travis Linscombe-Hatfield, and Jack Ward ruined what could have been after that late run to the pits. He came home in P9 overall, P3 in the silver class. Ryan Davies P10, Glenn Humberstone bets the rest in P11 overall there, and Alistair Hatcher P12 with Humberstone and Hatcher completing the top 5 for the silver class. Danny Weston P13, I think wondering about what could have been if it had not gone as wrong as it had towards the end of the race when he lost the rear of the car behind Hatcher, but still plenty for the Zilla Racing to take from today. We know he's got a lot of pace under the hood of his car. Simon Bamber P14, David Stewart P15, and then outside the top 15, Matty Wild, Tom Weston, Richard White, and as we look further down the order there, Cameron Willesee P19, Joe Newman P20, then Lee Holmes P21, Misha Berger P22, Mark Oliver P23, Mark Custers P24, Gordon Ramsay P25, Lewis Willesee, last but not least, P26. But you'll notice there, quite the rate of attrition in round number 2, given the instance we saw early on in the race, plus also those drive-through penalties, a number of drives not quite making it to the halfway point, and that may change up the classification a little bit or lead to them being classified as a did not finished. But meanwhile, it is the case that whilst we do wait for those stands to come through, we'll bring you those come at the start of rounds 3 and 4. It is the case that now we need to head from trackside to say thank you very much for watching. And if you did enjoy tonight's broadcast, then you want to know more about the UK sim racing community, then why not check us out at our official website, that is uksimracing.co.uk. Alternatively, if you're more of a Twitter user, you can always go to twitter.com/UKSimRacing_. Now, it is the case, as we mentioned earlier, We do have a number of affiliates at UKSimRacing, and we would like to say a big thank you to our affiliate partners, including Swelio Omeda Sim Racing Coaching, and you can see at Swelio Omeda's YouTube link there is the case if you're looking for a prime source of sim racing coaching. Swelio Omeda is one of the top guys out there, and definitely for the Porsche Super Cup car, given the fact he was the 2021 winner in the America Super Cup Series. We also have Race Anywhere there, and it is the case that Race Anywhere, website raceanywhere.co.uk, is the provider of curated sim racing equipment aimed to stock products only that represent excellent value for the sim racing community, and also Demon Tweaks, the provider of the most complete and innovative motorsport product range available worldwide. So no matter what your level of discipline, Demon Tweaks could help drive you to realise your motorsport ambitions in the real world of racing. But speaking of further racing, it is the case our drivers will now be packing up their bags. They've got 2 weeks before they make the way over the Atlantic Ocean to Monza in Italy for the Grand Prix circuit, and will be racing there for rounds 3 and 4 on what will be Thursday the 6th of October 2022, but the broadcast should be brought to you as if it were live on Friday the 7th of October. So save the date. If you thought rounds 1 and 2 at Road Atlanta were full of drama and racing action, I can assure you that Monza, whilst we will have the correct instant count limit, it will be the case we won't be seeing as many drive-throughs. It is the case a lot of drivers will be driving through the slipstream to try and succeed, and who will come out on top in the slipstream fest that is Monza, only time will tell in 2 weeks' time. But from all of us at UK Sim Racing, thank you very much for tuning in. I've been your host and commentator, Paul TX141 Walsh, and until next time, ladies and gentlemen, stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.